Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots Connected. We've got a lot to cover today from the weekend, from the world's largest aircraft carrier steaming toward Venezuela to the Justice Department threatening to arrest Democrat governors. Let's get busy connecting some dots. First up, the Trump administration just made a massive show of force in America's backyard. The Pentagon is sending the USS Gerald Ford, the world's largest, most advanced aircraft carrier, to the Caribbean. We're talking 90 fighter jets and nuclear powered punch steaming 500 miles off Florida. And just yesterday, the guided missile destroyer USS Gravely docked in Trinidad. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered the deployment to what the Pentagon calls dismantling transnational criminal organizations and countering narco terrorism in defense of the homeland. Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said the carrier's presence will bolster U.S. capacity to detect, monitor, and disrupt illicit actors and activities that compromise the safety and prosperity of the United States. As we've previously covered, the Trump administration has been conducting strikes against drug smuggling boats in the region. Now they're backing it up with America's most powerful warship. Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro is not happy about it. He criticized the carrier's movement as an attempt by the U.S. to fabricate a new eternal war against his country. But here's what Maduro doesn't want you to remember. President Trump himself has directly accused him of being the leader of the organized crime gang Tren de Aragua. This is the same gang that's been terrorizing American cities. The timing matters. This isn't just military posturing. This is President Trump connecting external threats to what's happening inside our borders. Fentanyl is killing over 100,000 Americans a year, much of it flowing through Venezuela and cartel networks. The president is taking the fight to its source. While President Trump's military moves south, his administration is drawing a red line against Democrat officials trying to block federal immigration enforcement at home. Stephen Miller made it crystal clear. The Trump administration will arrest governors, state officials, local officials, and anyone else operating in an official capacity who impedes federal law enforcement. Here's Miller's exact warning.
Talk about your willingness and under what federal authority do you arrest a sitting governor? I understand the supremacy clause. I understand interference with a federal officer. Tell me how it works that he would make himself susceptible to being arrested.
Well, the answer I'm about to give doesn't only apply to Governor Pritzker. It applies to any state official, any local official, anybody who's operating in an official capacity who conspires or engages in activity that unlawfully impedes federal law enforcement conducting their duties. So if you engage in a criminal conspiracy to obstruct the enforcement of federal immigration laws or to unlawfully order your own police officers or your own officials to try to interfere with ICE officers or even to arrest ICE officers, you're engaged in criminal activity. Different kinds of crimes would apply. There's obstruction of justice. There is harboring illegal aliens. There is impeding the enforcement of our immigration laws. And then as you get up the scale of behavior, you obviously get into seditious conspiracy charges, depending on the conduct, and many other offenses. So again, it depends on the action, it depends on the conduct, it depends on what is taking place. But what we need to reassure, a couple points. To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. And anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties. And the Department of Justice has made clear that if officials cross that line into obstruction, into criminal conspiracy against the United States or against ICE officers, then they will face justice.
This isn't a bluff. Deputy AG Todd Blanche sent official letters to California Governor Gavin Newsom, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and San Francisco District Attorney Brooke Jenkins. The letter warns them that if they attempt to arrest federal immigration officers, the DOJ will pursue criminal charges against them. The letter also directed these officials to preserve all records related to any discussions about arresting federal officers. That's not hyperbole. That's RICO level talk for state level defiance. And prosecutors are building cases. The backdrop here, though. Prominent Democrats, from Pelosi to Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, have been threatening to pursue legal action against ICE agents for what they call abuses. Pelosi and others have openly talked about having federal officers arrested. Think about that. While President Trump's military crushes cartels in Venezuela, these sanctuary city leaders are protecting the very networks that let cartel poison flow unchecked into American cities. The Justice Department's response? Try it, and you'll face seditious conspiracy charges. This is the federal government versus sanctuary states, and President Trump's DOJ isn't backing down. Miller put it bluntly: if you mess around, then you will find out. And here's where President Trump's domestic security agenda gets serious. After the president designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, the Justice Department and the California U.S. Attorney are now exploring RICO charges against Antifa members. A DOJ official confirmed, "We're looking at RICO. Really, the FBI is just getting its hands around Antifa." Think about what that means. The Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act was designed to take down organized crime like the mafia. But if Antifa gets hit with RICO charges, prosecutors can go after leaders for crimes they ordered others to commit. Antifa street chaos just went federal. Now, connect this to another leaked story. A memo circulating online reveals that the Department of Defense is training a National Guard response force in crowd control and civil unrest tactics, with readiness for deployment across all U.S. states and territories by April of 2026. When asked about this by the Gateway pundit, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth wouldn't confirm or deny the memo, but he did say this: "We've got a lot of different ways that constitutionally and legally we can employ Title 10 and Title 32 forces, and we will do so when necessary. From terror label to RICO raids to National Guard riot squads by spring, President Trump's betting on blowback, and it signals that Team Trump expects resistance to federal enforcement, and they're preparing to meet it with force."
Memo circulating on social media details the establishment of a National Guard response force that's going to be trained in crowd control and civil unrest and deployed in all 50 states by April of 2026. Can you verify the authenticity of that memo, and do you have any more information on the operations?
I'm not going to answer particulars on something that may be in the planning process, but we definitely do have multiple layers of National Guard response forces, whether it's in each state, whether it's regionally, whether it's Title 10 active duty, whether it's Washington, D.C. We've got a lot of different ways that constitutionally and legally we can employ Title 10 and Title 32 forces, and we will do so when necessary.
Moving on, and this is a big one. Let me start with what President Trump posted to Truth Social because it sets the stage for everything else. He said, "The 2020 presidential election being rigged and stolen is a far bigger scandal. Look what happened to our country when a crooked moron became our president. We now know everything. I hope the DOJ pursues this with as much gusto as befitting the biggest scandal in American history. If not, it will happen again, including the upcoming midterms." The president is demanding the Justice Department investigate 2020 with the same intensity that was used to investigate him. And here's the bombshell: that might actually be happening. Conservative attorney Mike Davis, a close friend and informal advisor to AG Pam Bondi and other top Trump officials, has revealed in multiple podcast interviews that a federal grand jury has been impaneled in Florida. It will begin meeting in January to investigate what Davis calls a decade-long conspiracy against President Donald Trump. Court documents confirm that a federal judge in Fort Pierce, Florida, ordered this grand jury impaneled at the request of the Trump administration. The grand jury will reportedly consider whether to bring criminal charges against top Democratic figures who allegedly colluded to impede Trump from the Russia investigation through the criminal cases against him. Now, here's where it gets even more explosive. Newly declassified documents related to the FBI's Arctic Frost investigation show that then Attorney General Merrick Garland, then Deputy AG Lisa Monaco, and then FBI Director Christopher Wray all signed off on launching this probe into the president over January 6th. Senator Chuck Grassley released a document from April 2022 showing that all three of them initialized a memo titled Approval to Open a Certain Sensitive Investigative Matter Investigation. The document had an obvious error. It listed the Capitol events as happening in early 2020 instead of early 2021. Either they didn't notice or they didn't care. But here's the kicker. Unearthed emails showed that the Biden White House counsel's office coordinated with anti-Trump FBI agent to hand over phones that belonged to Trump and former Vice President Mike Pence. Let that sink in. The Biden White House was directly coordinating with the FBI to launch investigations into Trump. Count the hits. 1. Russia investigation, 2016. 2. Impeachment number 1, 2019. 3. Impeachment number 2, 2021. 4. January 6th committee. 5. 4 separate criminal indictments. This isn't speculation. It's in the declassified documents. So when President Trump says we now know everything, this is what he's talking about. The evidence shows coordination between the White House, the Attorney General, the Deputy AG, and the FBI Director to target Trump as he was preparing to run for president again. And now there's a grand jury in Florida that could return indictments against the very people who spent years trying to put Trump in prison. Oh, and one more twist. Former special counsel Jack Smith, the man who prosecuted Trump, is now seeking to testify publicly before the House and Senate Judiciary Committees. His attorneys sent letters to House Chairman Jim Jordan and Senate Chairman Chuck Grassley requesting open testimony. Why would Jack Smith suddenly want to testify in public? Coincidence or preemptive spin as the grand jury heats up? Maybe he knows what's coming, and he wants to get his story out first. From hunted to hunter, the tables are turning in real time. They investigated President Trump for a decade. Now the president's DOJ is investigating them. Indictments could drop by spring. Game on. And moving on, with the November 4th general election just 8 days away, the DOJ announced it will deploy staff to monitor polling sites in 6 jurisdictions to ensure compliance with federal voting laws. AG Bondi emphasized the administration's commitment, saying, transparency at the polls translates into faith in the electoral process, and this DOJ is committed to upholding the highest standard of election integrity. We will commit the resources necessary to ensure the American people get the free, fair, and transparent elections they deserve. This ties directly back to the president's post on Truth Social, where he didn't just demand justice for 2020, he warned about the upcoming midterms too. He specifically called for no mail-in voting, no early voting, and yes to voter ID. He's told Republicans to watch how totally dishonest the California prop vote is and complained about millions of ballots being shipped. The president's closing line: get smart, Republicans, before it's too late. And here's another dot to connect. This appears to be the sequel to 2020, with the president calling 2020 the biggest scandal in American history, while simultaneously warning that it could happen again in next week's midterms. And his DOJ is responding by sending monitors to key jurisdictions. The first shot in protecting the vote. Whether you believe 2020 was stolen or not, the Trump administration is making election integrity a central focus of this midterm. They're putting federal eyes on polling places in California and New Jersey, and they're making it clear that they're watching for irregularities. Bondi's statement about transparency translating into faith is the message. Voters need trust in the system. But President Trump's message is different. The system was rigged before. Watch it closely now, or it will happen again. And let's close with two stories that remind us foreign threats aren't just theoretical, they're active operations right now. From honeypots in newsrooms to nuke shopping in the Caucasus, this is China's hybrid war. First, a former Politico reporter is under investigation by European security services for working as a Chinese spy. According to reports, this journalist used their position to cultivate potential targets in Brussels based international organizations, including making sexual overtures towards officials in these institutions. Think about that. A mainstream media reporter for Politico, which is supposedly considered a credible outlet, was allegedly operating as an asset for the Chinese Communist Party, seducing and recruiting officials with access to sensitive information. And now add this. 3 Chinese citizens were arrested in the country of Georgia while attempting to illegally purchase 2 kilograms of uranium. They plan to pay $400,000 for the nuclear material and transport it to China through Russia. Georgia's State Security Service said the suspects brought experts into the country to search for uranium and coordinated the operation from China. One of the Chinese nationals was already in breach of Georgian visa regulations. 2 kilograms of uranium doesn't sound like much, but in the wrong hands, it's enough for a dirty bomb or research into weapons development. And the Chinese were willing to pay nearly $500,000 for it. And here's the connection. China is running intelligence operations inside Western media to recruit sources, and they're running black market operations to acquire nuclear materials. These aren't separate issues, they're part of the same strategy: infiltrate institutions, gather intelligence, and acquire strategic materials. While DC brawls over sanctuary cities in Venezuela, Beijing is playing a longer, quieter game and winning. It's time to wake up. All right, guys, that's all I've got for today. Not 6 headlines, harbingers. This administration is gearing for foreign fire, domestic defiance, accountability for past crimes, and election protection. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and follow to stay on top of the daily happenings. I'll see you guys tomorrow.